The impact rattled Ben's bones. He skidded across the cracked ground, tumbling through broken stone and shattered steel. His ribs screamed in protest. His breathing was sharp yet ragged. Somewhere behind him, a guttural roar split the air, heavy footsteps shaking the battlefield like falling meteors. Vilgax. Ben wiped blood from his lip and pushed himself to his feet. He was 16 now, taller, stronger, and long past the fumbling days of a rookie hero. But that didn't make Vilgax any less terrifying. The warlord loomed from the smoke, his colossal frame armoured in jagged plates, his eyes burning with cold hatred. The gauntlets on his fists still glowed from their last strike, a blow strong enough to reduce a tank to molten slag. "You're all grown up now, boy," Vilgax snarled, his voice rumbling like an earthquake. "But you're still nothing before me. This galaxy belongs to conquerors, not children." Ben raised his wrist, the Omnitrix's green core pulsing defiantly. "Yeah? That's funny, because I've kicked your butt enough times to know that you never win. I guess I'll have to remind you why they call me a hero." Vilgax lunged. The ground cracked under his charge. Every step was like a thunderclap. Ben slammed his palm down on the Omnitrix. Green light erupted around him, reshaping bone and muscle, clothing and skin. In a flash, the teenager was gone. In his place towered a magma-skinned humanoid, fire leaking from cracks across his body, his eyes blazing like furnaces. Heat blast. Flames roared from his hands as he hurled fireballs into Vilgax's chest. Explosions lit up the battlefield in blinding orange, the shockwave rippling outward. Vilgax staggered backward, but he did not fall. His armour smoked, scorched but unbroken. With a guttural snarl, the warlord raised a massive claw, revealing a weapon clamped to his forearm. It pulsed with sickly, shifting light, a device unlike anything Ben had ever seen. Its surface writhed as though alive, veins of dark energy pulsing across it. "You've faced my strength. You've faced my armies. Now you'll face something beyond both," Vilgax growled. "A gift from powers older than the universe." The weapon screamed as it charged, the air distorting, space itself warped. Ben's stomach twisted. His flames flickered wildly as if the air was being ripped away. Uh-oh. The weapon discharged. A beam of writhing crimson and violet energy slammed into him, tearing through his fiery form. Heat Blast screamed as his body disintegrated into fragments of light, pulled into a vortex that ripped open in the air. He reached for the Omnitrix, slamming desperately at the dial, but the world stretched, warped, and collapsed into darkness. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on his back beneath a crimson sky. The air was heavy, thick with smoke and ash. Towers lay in ruin around him, black stone cracked and burning. Strange symbols were scrawled on broken walls in blood, jagged stars and crude skulls. The ground shook with distant artillery, and faint screams carried on the wind. Ben groaned, pushing himself upright. The Omnitrix's core pulsed weakly on his wrist, smoke curling from its edges. He patted it nervously. "Are you still with me, buddy? Please don't break on me now." The device beeped once, steady, alive. Ben sighed with relief, then looked around. This isn't Bellwood. Heavy boots crunched behind him. Ben turned to see a squad of soldiers emerging from the ruins, their rifles raised. They wore dull green flak armor, battered and smeared with grime, their helmets adorned with two-headed eagles. Their faces were hollow-eyed, exhausted, but the way they held their guns told Ben that they were ready to pull the trigger at the first wrong move. The leader barked something in a harsh, commanding tone. "Identify yourself, boy." Ben raised his hand slowly. My name's Ben. Ben Tennyson. I think I'm a little lost." The soldiers glanced at each other. One muttered under his breath, "A civilian? Out here?" Another scoffed. "Looks like a Hive brat. Send him back to the camps." Their leader lowered his gun slightly, frowning. "You shouldn't be alive out here. Where's your unit?" Ben blinked. "Unit? I don't... Look, I'm not from here. I was fighting someone and then a sudden beep cut him off. The Omnitrix's dial lit up, its familiar glow pulsing in the shadows. The guardsmen froze. Their eyes snapped to the device, their suspicion hardening instantly into something darker. "What's that on your arm?" one demanded. "Some kind of tech," another whispered. "Could be archaeotech. Could be heretech," another hissed. The leader stepped forward. "Show it to us. Now." Ben instinctively pulled his wrist back. "No way. It's not for you." The tension sharpened. Their guns clicked. "You'll surrender that device," the sergeant ordered coldly, "or you'll come with us in a body bag." Ben set his jaw, anger sparking. "Yeah, it's not happening." The guardsmen began to close in, and then the chanting began. From the ruins beyond, a chorus of voices rose, guttural, crazed, inhuman. Shapes emerged, dozens at first, then scores. Men warped by madness, their bodies marked with crude scars and painted sigils. Their eyes glowed with fanatic hunger, their rusted weapons raised as they screamed their devotion. Blood for the blood god. Chaos cultists. The guardsmen swung their rifles, panic flashing in their eyes. Contact! The horde charged, a tide of bodies rushing against the rubble. Ben's pulse quickened. He glanced at the soldiers, then at the Omnitrix. His jaw tightened. "I guess we'll settle this later." He slammed his hand down on the dial. Green light erupted, dazzling both guardsmen and the cultists. His body stretched, expanded, bones thickening, muscles swelling. The light burned brighter, taller, until it broke like a flare. When it cleared, Ben was gone. In his place stood a red-skinned giant, 4 massive arms bulging with power, his eyes blazing with fury. 4 arms. The cultists shrieked, some faltering at the sight, others charging all the same. 4 arms roared, the sound echoing like a thunderclap as he slammed his lower fists into the ground. The earth cracked, a shockwave blasting the cultists off their feet. They came at him with chains, knives, axes. He swatted them aside like insects, his fists the size of hammers. One swung a crude blade, but forearms caught it in one hand, crushing it to shards, then hurled the cultist into three more with bone-breaking force. A wave surged around him. Forearms seized two men, one in each of his upper hands, and smashed them together like cymbals, the crack of their bones echoing. His lower fists drove into the ground, sending more flying. Blood sprayed, screams filled the air. The guardsmen fought too, their lasguns cutting down cultists in precise bursts, but it was forearms who held the line. A hulking brute of a cultist, clad in scavenged armour and wielding a roaring chain axe, bellowed and charged. Forearms grinned. Finally, someone my size. The axe swung down. Forearms caught it with his upper arm, the teeth sparking as they ground against his skin. With his other arms, he hammered the brute in the gut, then the chest, then the skull. The chain axe fell silent as its wielder crumpled to the dirt, unconscious. The rest of the cultists faltered. Those not crushed or broken began to flee, screaming into the ruins. The battlefield fell silent save for the ragged breaths of the guardsmen and the low growl of forearms. Slowly he exhaled, his massive chest rising and falling. The Omnitrix beeped. A green flash consumed him, shrinking his form, returning him to the scuffed, dirt-covered figure of a 16-year-old boy. Ben brushed dust from his jacket, looking around at the stunned soldiers. "You're welcome." The guardsmen stared, their rifles rising as one. Their sergeant's voice was cold and flat. "Mutant, heretic, Xenos." The circle of rifles tightened around him. Ben raised his hands, exasperated. "Seriously? I just saved your lives." No response, only hard, unyielding eyes filled with suspicion and hate. Ben groaned, muttering under his breath as the circle closed around him. These people are so stupid. The barrels of a dozen lasguns stared Ben in the face. The smoke from the battle still hung heavy in the air, stinging his lungs, but the guardsmen showed no gratitude for his efforts. Their eyes were grim, their trigger fingers were steady. The sergeant's voice cut like a blade. "Drop to your knees, hands on your head, now." Ben looked around at the soldiers encircling him. They were filthy, blood-stained, their faces worn by war. But the way they stared at him, with a mixture of suspicion, fear, and disgust, was worse than any monster he'd fought back home. "Are you serious?" Ben threw up his hands. "I just saved you from a bunch of screaming lunatics with rusty axes. You're welcome, by the way." "Silence," the sergeant barked. "You wield abilities no mortal should command. Xenos sorcery, or worse." Ben groaned, muttering. "Yeah, sure. Sorcery. Totally not a watch that turns me into awesome aliens." The rifles did not waver. The guardsmen moved in, snapping heavy restraints onto his wrists. They were crude iron shackles, but they were surprisingly strong. Ben considered breaking free with another transformation, but the Omnitrix was still cooling down, its core blinking red. Not an option. "Fine," Ben sighed. "But if Vilgax shows up, don't come crying to me." They marched him through the ruins, past burning towers and crumbling walls covered in bloodied symbols. Civilians huddled in the shadows, their faces were gaunt and hopeless. The guardsman shoved him onto a waiting transport, its engines coughing smoke into the ash-filled air. Inside, the ride was silent, save for the rumble of treads and the clatter of weapons. The soldiers gave him a wide berth. Their eyes were fixed forward, as though staring at him too long might infect them. Ben rolled his eyes. "You guys are really friendly, you know that? Totally winning the Welcome Stranger award." No answer, just silence and steel. Hours passed. The transport finally ground to a halt within the walls of a fortress, a monolithic slab of black stone, bristling with gun turrets and banners depicting the same double-headed eagle. Soldiers dragged Ben down long corridors, the air reeking of oil and incense. Strange chants echoed faintly in the distance. At last, they shoved him into a massive chamber, lit by flickering candles and green lumens. The air shimmered with heat, heavy with the scent of machine oil. Robed figures stepped forward, their bodies obscured beneath crimson cloaks. Metallic limbs gleamed beneath the fabric, mechanical eyes whirring as they studied him. Ben blinked. Whoa, robo-monks. The Adeptus Mechanicus had arrived. One of the tech priests glided closer, his lower half a spidery mess of steel legs. Tubes hissed from beneath his hood. His voice was a distorted, metallic rasp. "Behold, the artifact." Their gaze was fixed not on Ben, but on his wrist. The Omnitrix's green core pulsed faintly, alive and defiant. "Unmistakable," another murmured. "A relic of the dark age of technology. Untouched, unsullied, pure." Dozens of mechadendrites, mechanical tendrils tipped with scanners and tools, snaked outward, hovering inches from Ben's arm. Ben pulled it back instinctively. "Hey, personal space, robo-squid." The guardsman shoved him forward, forcing him into a chair of iron restraints. Shackles clamped over his arms and legs with a hiss of hydraulics. The lead tech priest leaned close, his mechanical eye focusing in and out with a click. "You, flesh child, will activate it. Show us the might of the ancients." Ben tilted his head. For a second, he considered refusing, but then he grinned. A chance to show off in front of creepy robot wizards who clearly thought the Omnitrix was holy. Oh yeah, he wasn't passing that opportunity up. "You want a demo? Fine. Prepare to be amazed." Ben twisted the dial. The green core lit up, filling the chamber with its glow. Gasps of awe echoed through the hooded ranks. He slammed his hand down, light exploding around him. Where the boy sat restrained, now stood a crystalline humanoid, his body faceted like living diamond, radiating refracted beams of light. Diamond head. He flexed, shards of crystal sprouting from his arms, gleaming under the lumens. The Mechanicus gasped. Their mechadendrites were quivering with excitement. Self-replicating lattice structure. Impossible. Living adamantine. A weapon beyond comprehension. Ben raised a crystalline fist and smirked. "It's pretty cool, right? But wait, there's more." The Omnitrix beeped. Another flash of light. His form twisted, shrank. Legs bending into limbs. His claws razor sharp. Wild mutt. The alien dropped to all fours, sniffing the air. His blind head swiveling as sonar sensors filled his mind. He barked once, a guttural roar, before leaping effortlessly to the ceiling and clinging there like a beast. The tech priests erupted in frenzied binary chatter, recording every movement, every sound. Ben laughed in his guttural alien voice. "I'm not done yet." Another flash. His body shrank again, becoming sleek, reptilian, his head finned and his back lined with gills. Water spewed from nowhere, swirling around him in a vortex. Rip jaws. His jaws snapped, teeth sparking. The guardsmen flinched back as his maw snapped inches from their faces. Another flash. He grew massive, magma cracks glowing across his skin, flames erupting from his hands. Heat blast. Fire lit the chamber, casting monstrous shadows across the walls. The guardsmen shielded their eyes. The tech priests' mechanical voices rose in a cacophony of awe. Elemental manipulation, controlled stellar fusion. Impossible. Ben extinguished the flames with a cocky grin. And that's just the highlight reel. The Omnitrix flashed again. His body was elongated, sleek, blue. A velociraptor-like alien with bladed limbs and clawed feet. Accelerate. He blurred into motion, zipping around the chamber in a cyclone of speed before screeching to a halt in front of the sergeant. The guardsman staggered back in shock. Ben shifted back to human form, arms spread, soaking in the stunned silence. So, still think I'm some kind of mutant freak, or are we calling me awesome yet? The silence broke, but not how Ben had hoped. The lead tech priest raised a claw. His voice was reverent yet cold. There can be no doubt. This is a relic of the Dark Age, a marvel lost to mankind. Until now. Ben smirked. Finally, some recognition. But the priest's tone hardened. And as with all relics, it must be reclaimed, disassembled, studied, its secrets made known. Ben froze. Wait. What? The mechadendrites writhed, clamping down on his wrists. The restraints on his chair tightened. The sergeant stepped forward, grim satisfaction in his eyes. You will be relieved of the device, boy. It belongs not to you, but to the servants of the Emperor. Ben twisted against the bonds. Newsflash. This thing doesn't come off. Trust me, I've tried. The priest's mechadendrites clicked, their needle-tipped tools sparking. We shall see. Ben's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed, his cocky grin fading. That's a bad idea. They didn't listen. The Omnitrix flared as the tools neared, its green glow burning brighter. A piercing hum filled the chamber, the sound rising until it was deafening. Cease resistance, the sergeant barked. Too late. The Omnitrix discharged. A sphere of emerald energy exploded outward, hurling tech priests and guardsmen alike across the chamber. Machinery sparked and shattered, the air filled with the smell of ozone and burning circuits. Robed figures slammed into walls, their metal limbs snapping. The restraints shattered, leaving Ben free in a haze of smoke and chaos. Ben stood, brushing soot from his jacket. His grin returned. sharper now. I told you. Alarms blared, klaxons screaming. Guardsmen scrambled to their feet, raising their weapons again. The tech priests screeched in binary fury, mechadendrites whipping wildly. Ben glanced at the Omnitrix, its dial glowing steady green once more. He cracked his knuckles. All right, enough games. His hand slammed down on the dial. The chamber erupted in green light. His body elongated, limbs twisting into sleek, aerodynamic lines. A long tail snapped out behind him. His head fin was sharp and streamlined. Accelerate. Time slowed. The guardsmen's shouts dragged into drawn-out echoes. The barrels of their lasguns seemed frozen mid-aim. Ben grinned, baring razor-sharp teeth. And then he moved. In a blur of blue and black, he streaked across the chamber. Las bolts cracked harmlessly into walls as he zipped past, knocking the rifles from their hands, sending the guardsmen tumbling. Sparks flew as he zipped circles around tech priests, tangling mechadendrites into twisted knots. He skidded to a stop at the chamber doors, the world snapping back to full speed as the soldiers and priests scrambled in disarray. Ben turned, his tail flicking. Thanks for the tour, robot monks, but I'll be keeping my watch, thanks. And with a blur he was gone, racing down the corridors, guardsmen shouting in a futile pursuit. Outside, the fortress shook with the sound of sirens and boots. Orders were barked, men scrambled, searchlights blazed across the smoke-filled sky. But none of it mattered, because nothing could catch him now. Accelerate darted through the corridors, dodging Laysfar, zipping past squads of soldiers like a ghost. He burst through the fortress gates in a streak of light, vanishing into the war-torn city beyond. Behind him, the fortress roared with alarm. The Mechanicus screamed of lost relics. The guardsmen cursed of Xenos sorcery. But Ben only laughed, the wind whipping past as he vanished into the night. For the first time since arriving in this nightmare world, he felt free. But as he raced across the broken landscape, he couldn't help but shake the feeling that his troubles were only just beginning. For somewhere, in the endless void above, darker eyes were already watching. The Hive city breathed smoke and despair. Skyscrapers of rusted metal and black stone stabbed into a sky that bled smog, their jagged silhouettes like the ribs of some dead titan. The streets below were rivers of humanity, gaunt, grey, their eyes downcast, their clothes little more than rags that stank of sweat and decay. And into this chaos, darting like a phantom, came a blue streak. Ben skidded into a narrow alley, his clawed feet grinding sparks against the ferrocrete. The Omnitrix dial pulsed once, and in a burst of green light, he shrank back into himself. 16-year-old Ben Tennyson stumbled, clutching at his knees, his chest heaving. Okay, he panted. Bad idea to run, on an empty stomach, in a creepy future war city. Alarms still blared faintly in the distance, echoing from the direction of the Mechanicus fortress. They were still searching for him, soldiers and tech priests hunting their relic. He pulled his jacket tighter, but the glowing core of the Omnitrix pulsed like a beacon. It was too obvious, too dangerous. His eyes fell on a rusted dumpster, overflowing with filth. The stench hit him like a punch, and he gagged, covering his nose. "Nope. No way. I'm not." A squad of guardsmen jogged past the alley mouth, las guns in hand. Their boots thudded on the cracked ferrocrete. Ben froze, pressing his back to the wall, his heart hammering in his chest. Ugh. Fine. He yanked a bundle of rags from the dumpster, shaking loose rats and clumps of rotten food. The smell was worse than wild mutt on a bad day. Grimacing, he draped the rags over himself like a cloak, pulling the hood low to cover his face. Ben 10, universal hero, he muttered, pinching his nose, now starring as hobo number 3. Awesome. He slipped into the crowds. Nobody looked at him twice. Why would they? Everyone was filthy, hunched, broken. The air tasted of ash and iron. Sirens howled overhead. Far above, he glimpsed spires crowned with cathedrals of black marble, their towers wreathed in incense smoke and gold aquillas that caught the faint light. But down here, on the Hive's lower levels, it was hell. Children with hollow cheeks begged in alleys. Work gangs shuffled past with chains around their necks. Servitors, half human, half machine, clanked through the streets, their dead eyes staring from faces that had once been human. Ben stopped, staring in horror. He'd seen plenty of bad guys, plenty of worlds, but this was different. This was humanity destroying itself, enslaved by fear and machines and endless war. He clenched his fists. What is wrong with this place? And more importantly, where was he? He needed answers, real answers, and then he saw it. A towering building of black stone, its surface carved with endless columns of names and prayers. At its gates, scribes shuffled in and out, carrying mountains of parchment. A sigil above the door read, Administratum. Library/office building of the galaxy, Ben guessed. Bingo. He ducked into an alley, twisted the Omnitrix dial and slammed it down. Green light washed over him, and when it faded, a tiny, grey-skinned alien, no bigger than a child's backpack, stood in his place. Grey matter, he squeaked in a high, chirpy voice. Scurrying like a rat, he slipped past the robed clerks and through a cracked service vent. Inside, the air smelled of ink and dust. Endless halls of shelves stretched into the shadows, filled not with books, but with cogitators and glowing terminals. Monks with parchment horns jutting from their skulls chanted binary prayers, their hands scratching endless calculations. Ben skittered along the wall, unseen, until he found it, a humming data loom, its green lumens flickering. He grinned, leaping onto the console. Oh man, jackpot. He twisted the Omnitrix dial and slapped it. Light erupted. His body flowed into black liquid metal. His face vanished as green circuitry pulsed along his skin. His limbs elongated into blades of steel and wire. Upgrade. His voice buzzed, deeper now. He melted into the cogitator. Circuits flared as his essence poured into the machine, his vision flooding with streams of code and data. And then, information, rivers of it. worlds catalogued by number, populations measured in the billions, records of wars that spanned stars, worship of a god emperor who had ruled for 10,000 years. Ben gasped. Inside the data stream, his voice echoed. This is Earth's future. He dove deeper. The year was 41,000 and change. Humanity ruled the stars, but in chains of fear, religion, and war. The galaxy was a graveyard of endless conflict. Orcs, Tyranids, Necrons, names that burned across the void. And above all, the warp. A nightmare dimension of madness and demons, the sea through which all ships must travel. Ben's circuits flickered with unease. He saw flashes of what lurked in that darkness. Vast, hungry gods, born of living thought. Whispers that clawed at his digital form. Join us, hero. He wrenched free, shuddering. Even in data, the warp could touch him. He steadied himself, focusing. Among the records he found navigation logs, ships, destinations, and then his breath caught. Terra. Not just any world. Earth. His Earth. Transformed into a holy planet. The throne world of the God Emperor. Home, he whispered. It's still here. If I can get there, maybe I can find a way back. He scanned manifests. A freighter, heavy with supplies, was scheduled to depart for Terra within hours. Ben detached from the cogitator, his upgrade form rippling into green light until he stood human again. All right, it's Terra or bust. Night fell, or what passed for night in the Hive's perpetual smog. The freighter loomed at the docks. Its hull was pitted and scarred, vast as a skyscraper. Cargo haulers rumbled up the ramps, loading crates the size of houses. Ben kept to the shadows, still covered in his filthy rags. His stomach growled, but he ignored it. Timing was everything. When the haulers cleared, he sprinted, slipping between stacked crates and clambering up a ladder. A final green flash. Accelerate. And he blurred past servitors unnoticed, vanishing into the ship's cargo hold. He dropped back to human, panting, and crawled into a narrow gap between the crates. The air was cold, smelling of oil and stale rations. His body ached from exhaustion. He pulled the rags tighter, curling into himself. For the first time in days, he let his eyes close, and sleep took him. Darkness. A sea of black stretched beneath him. The stars flickered and went out one by one, swallowed by an ocean of red fire. Voices whispered from the void, echoing with laughter and hunger. Ben Tennyson. So brave, so foolish. You do not belong here, but you are ours now. He turned, but the darkness shifted. Faces loomed, monstrous, shifting. Too many eyes, too many mouths. Claws the size of planets reached for him. Stay back, Ben shouted, slamming the Omnitrix down. Light flared, but nothing happened. The dial was dark. The claws closed around him. Fire licked his skin, burning, searing. The voices grew louder, a choir of madness. Your soul is fuel, your hope delicious. We will wear your face in the wars to come. He screamed. Ben jolted awake, his heart hammering. Sweat now soaked his rags. His hands were shaking. The ship groaned around him, bulkheads rattling. Outside, the warp engines howled like distant thunder. The shadows seemed too deep, moving at the corners of his eyes. He pressed a hand to the Omnitrix. Its green glow was dim, but steady. What? What was that? He whispered. Warp sickness. He'd read about it. Dreams, hallucinations, or worse. He shivered, pulling the rags tighter. Hours or days passed. Time felt wrong. His stomach gnawed at itself, but finally the ship shuddered, alarms chiming. Real space translation complete. A Vox voice droned overhead. The howl of the warp faded. Stars blossomed into existence once more. Ben crawled to a viewport, his breath catching. Outside, framed in the glow of the newborn dawn, a world filled the heavens. A planet wrapped in golden light, its surface smothered by endless cities, towers gleaming like blades. Vast rings encircled it, dotted with orbital fortresses. Fleets of warships drifted like sharks in its shadow. Terra. Ben pressed a hand to the glass, his heart racing. Earth, he whispered. I'm coming home. The freighter shuddered as it drifted into orbit. Beyond the grimy viewport, Ben Tennyson pressed his hand against the glass, wide-eyed. This wasn't Earth, not the one he knew. The planet below was wrapped in an endless carapace of steel and stone. Its surface, a single city that spanned continents. Golden spires reached skyward like knives, cutting through the haze of smog and fire. Rings of fortresses circled the globe, bristling with guns the size of skyscrapers. Armadas of warships drifted through the void like predators, each one vast enough to level a solar system. Ben's throat tightened. This is home. No way. This is something else. He thought of Bellwood, of his mum's kitchen, of the sun rising over trees and fields. That Earth was gone, buried beneath 10,000 years of war and worship. Something terrible had happened here. Hours later, the cargo ship lurched as smaller craft detached, guided toward the planet's surface by automated servitors. Ben crouched among a pile of crates, waiting, silent. When the deck groaned with pressure changes, he knew they were entering atmosphere. Time to bail. He twisted the Omnitrix, green light flaring. Accelerate. With a sonic blur, he zipped through narrow corridors, slipping past lumbering servitors and blinking Auspex lenses. He skidded into the cargo shuttle's hold, just as the ramp sealed. The shuttle screamed through clouds of black smoke. Fire danced across the hull as they broke atmosphere. Ben braced himself, peering out a narrow slit of a viewport. What he saw made his stomach clench. The sky was a furnace. Ash clouds choked the light, turning the world into twilight. Towers of black stone and golden steel clawed at the heavens, cities stacked on top of cities in impossible layers. The ground was a patchwork of hab blocks, manufactorums, and rivers of waste. Everywhere he looked there were people, millions, billions, endless tides of humanity. They shuffled in chains through streets, their bodies thin, their eyes hollow. Vast temples rose above them, drowning the air in chants and incense smoke. Ben pulled his hood lower as he slipped off the shuttle ramp and into the crowd. Nobody looked at him twice. Why would they? Everyone here was broken, filthy, and faceless in the sea of despair. This isn't home, Ben whispered, watching a child beg for scraps, only to be shoved aside by a passing priest. His fists clenched. This is a nightmare. But high above it all, dominating the horizon, he saw it. The Golden Palace. An impossible fortress of gold and marble. Its towers gleamed like suns, blotting out the sky. Vast banners of the double-headed eagle hung from its walls. Lightning crackled around its battlements. Even at this distance, Ben felt the weight of it pressing down on his chest. "That's where I'll get answers," he muttered. "If anyone knows how to get me home, it's got to be the guy running this circus. The Emperor." The journey took hours. He climbed through tiers of the Hive, scaling broken stairways and weaving through rivers of humanity. The closer he got to the palace, the more intense the security became. Pilgrims wept and tore their clothes at the sight of the golden walls. Soldiers in black armor scanned the crowds. And then he saw them. The custodies. They stood at the gates like statues of living gold, each one taller than forearms, their armor gleaming, their guardian spears crackling with power. Their eyes glowed faintly beneath visored helms. They didn't move. They didn't waver. They didn't need to. Just being near them made Ben's skin crawl. He stepped forward anyway. Hey, he said, forcing a smile. "My name's Ben Tennyson. I've got an appointment with the big guy. You know, the Emperor." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then one custodes tilted his head, ever so slightly, his voice a thunderclap, even when quiet. "You will step back." Ben blinked. "Yeah, see, about that. I really do need to see him. He's going to be really annoyed if I'm late. Cosmic destiny and all that. Trust me, you don't want to be the ones keeping him waiting." The custodes' eyes narrowed. The haft of his spear crackled with energy. "This is your final warning, stranger. Leave, or be destroyed." The humour drained from Ben's face. He took a slow step back, hands raised. "Okay, message received. No need to zap the tourist." He slipped away into the crowd, his heart pounding. Minutes later, he crouched in the shadows of a ruined column, the palace looming above him. His fingers tapped the Omnitrix. "All right," he whispered. "Plan B." The dial spun, a green flash. His body stretched, turned translucent, his voice now a low echo. His eyes glowed bright green. "Ghost freak." He grinned, his form shimmering into invisibility. Slowly, Like a phantom, he drifted through the golden gates, intangible, untouchable. Inside, the palace was a labyrinth of impossible scale. Endless halls of gold stretched for miles, their walls carved with saints and martyrs. Rivers of incense smoke drifted from braziers the size of trucks. Armoured figures marched in silent patrols, their boots echoing like thunder. Ben slipped through walls, unseen, searching. His chest tightened with every passing minute. The Omnitrix's power wasn't endless. And then he found it. The chamber was vast beyond comprehension, a cathedral within a cathedral. Pillars of gold stretched into shadows so high he couldn't see the ceiling. Choirs of psykers chanted in endless prayer, their voices a low drone that shook the air. At the centre, upon a throne of machinery that stretched like mountains, sat the golden throne, and upon it, Ben's breath caught, the Emperor of mankind, or what was left of him anyway. A corpse god of unimaginable size, wrapped in golden armour, his flesh rotting and withered. Tubes, wires, and conduits as thick as trees pierced his body, feeding machines that kept him barely alive. His skull-like face was hidden behind a mask of metal, but even from here, Ben felt the raw power radiating from him. It was horrible, awe-inspiring, terrifying. Ben hovered there, his ghostly form flickering, his stomach twisted. That's not a ruler. He's a prisoner. He's a battery. The Omnitrix began to beep, warning tones. No, not now, not here. Green light flickered across his ghostly body. He bolted, flying through walls, his intangible form flickering in and out as the timer counted down. 1 wall, 2, 3. His breath came ragged. Panic set in. The Omnitrix wailed and shut down. In a flash, Ben crashed into flesh and bone, stumbling forward as a human once more. His knees hit the marble floor of an unknown chamber. The room was dark, lit only by golden firelight. He groaned, shaking his head, lifting himself up, and froze. Someone was standing there, a towering figure in armour unlike any he had seen before. Not the gold of the Custodes, but darker, older, marked with symbols Ben didn't recognise. The man's presence filled the room like a storm. Ben swallowed hard, forcing a weak grin. Hi there, he said, his voice cracked. Nice armour. The chamber smelled of oil, incense, and iron. Firelight licked across walls lined with banners that depicted ancient victories, golden laurels, and the stern faces of long-dead heroes. Massive tomes bound in human skin sat on shelves, carved into the stone itself. A war table glowed at the centre, its holographic display shifting with star maps and endless red threat markers. And standing at its edge, a figure out of myth. Ben's breath caught. He had seen forearms tower over others, fought monsters that could split cities in half. But this was different. The man before him was more than human. A giant, armoured in blue and gold, His presence filled the room like gravity itself. Every movement radiated command. His face was chiseled, sharp like a statue, but his eyes burned with a storm barely held back. Rabute Guilliman, Lord Commander of the Imperium, the Avenging Sun, the Primarch. And right now his eyes were locked on Ben, cold, sharp, and furious. How? Guilliman's voice was low thunder. How does a child breach the most sacred fortress in the galaxy? Ben flinched at the word child. His heart hammered as the Primarch's gauntleted hand tightened around the pommel of a sword sheathed at his hip. The blade pulsed faintly, alive with power. Ben raised his hands. Hey, look, I know what this looks like, big guy, but I swear, I'm not here to cause trouble. You dare speak so casually in my presence? Guilliman's voice rose, echoing off the ceilings. Do you have any concept of the sanctity you've defiled? Millions die just to approach these walls, and yet you, some boy, slip past the custodies like a wraith. Explain yourself before I decide you're a Xenos infiltrator and have your head mounted on the gates. Ben's throat went dry. His usual snark faltered under the sheer pressure of the Primarch's gaze. The Omnitrix on his wrist pulsed faintly, like it too was afraid. But then, something in Guilliman shifted. The fury subsided, drawn back like a tide. The Primarch breathed out, long and controlled, and when he spoke again his voice was steadier, commanding still, but measured. No, not anger, not yet. I must understand. His eyes narrowed, analysing every twitch of Ben's face. Who are you, boy? Speak. Ben swallowed hard and forced himself to meet the giant's gaze. His voice came out shaky at first, then steadier as he went on. My name's Ben Tennyson. I'm not from here, not this place, not this version of Earth. I come from somewhere else, a different timeline, dimension, I don't know. All I know is I was home 1 second, and the next, I'm here. He held up his wrist, the Omnitrix gleaming green in the dim light. This thing brought me across, or maybe it was Vilgax. He's this warlord, a conqueror, biggest bad guy I've ever faced. He wanted the Omnitrix. He always did. Maybe he finally found a way to use it. Maybe he sent me here. All I know is, I didn't ask for this. I just want to go home. For a moment, silence. Guilliman's gaze flicked from Ben's face to the alien device. His expression was unreadable. But finally, he spoke. Home, Guilliman repeated quietly. The word burns on the tongue. You speak of it with such simplicity, such innocence. His hand drifted away from his sword. The tension in the room shifted. Less executioner, more inquisitor. And this Vilgax, Guilliman continued. You claim he wielded some power over this device. Ben nodded sharply. Yeah, he's the worst. Strong, cunning, ruthless. He's torn apart entire fleets. If I ever see him again, I swear I'll end him once and for all. At that, Guilliman's eyes narrowed. He leaned forward, his massive form looming. Vilgax, the Primarch said, testing the name like steel on a whetstone. What is he? Man? Alien? Demon? Alien, Ben said quickly. A warlord. Tentacles, armor, the whole scary package deal. But he's not just any alien. He's obsessed with power. And the Omnitrix. He calls it the ultimate weapon. He thinks it can make him unstoppable. Guilliman stood silent, processing it all. The blue glow of the war table cast shadows across his face, turning his already stern features into something almost inhuman. He turned away, pacing slowly, his gauntlets clasped behind his back. A weapon, he muttered. A conqueror. An artifact that bends reality itself, and a boy who wields it without understanding. His voice dropped lower. This galaxy knows such patterns all too well. He turned back to Ben, eyes sharp again. If what you say is true, then this Vilgax may hold the key to your arrival. If he weaponized your transition between dimensions, then tracing his actions may provide the only path back. Without him, you are lost. Ben blinked, then grinned despite himself. So you're saying, if I find Vilgax, I can find my way home? Guilliman's stern expression softened. Not much, but enough for the faintest hint of humanity to crack through his marble mask. Perhaps, a small pause, but I have never heard this name, nor this foe. If he walks among the stars of this Imperium, then he hides well. Ben's grin faltered. So, you don't know where he is? A rare thing happened then. The avenging sun smiled, a small, wry curve of the lips. No, Guilliman said simply. I do not. Ben groaned, dragging a hand down his face. Great. Just great. But, Guilliman continued, the Imperium is vast. Our archives stretch across thousands of years and uncountable stars. If this Vilgax exists somewhere in the galaxy, some record may yet be found. Hope flickered in Ben's chest. Wait, you mean you'll let me look? Guilliman nodded once. The motion was precise and absolute. I will grant you access to certain Imperium archives, but only on one condition. Ben's grin returned. Yeah, name it. The Primarch's gauntlet lifted and pointed at the Omnitrix. Ben stiffened. Oh no. No. I've already been through this, big guy. Your weird robo-priests, the Mechanicus, they tried to kill me over this thing. Said it was a heresy, an abomination, a toaster that needed worshipping, whatever. It's not happening. Nobody's taking the Omnitrix. Guilliman's eyes narrowed, then softened again. He inclined his head, almost apologetic. You have my word. I do not seek to strip you of it. The Mechanicus are zealous. Their hunger blinds them. They would dissect you if given the chance. But I am not them. His voice hardened. I ask only that you use it wisely. Cooperate with me, and you will not be harmed. Together, we may yet uncover this Vilgax and the truth of your arrival. Ben hesitated, eyes flicking to the glowing green dial on his wrist. The Omnitrix hummed faintly, almost as if listening. Finally, Ben exhaled. "All right, it's a deal." Guilliman extended his gauntlet. It was massive, each finger like a steel column. Ben hesitated, then reached out, his small hand vanishing into the Primarch's grip. The shake was firm, absolute, a pact sealed. "Good," Guilliman said. "Then we are allies." He turned, the war table flaring to life with maps of star systems, shifting fleets, endless red-marked war zones. His voice carried the weight of command, every word etched with iron. "Know this, Ben Tennyson. The Imperium of Man is besieged on all sides. Xenos, traitors, heretics, demons, all claw at our throat. You wish to search my archives? Then you will stand beside me, lend your weapon to my cause." Ben swallowed, staring at the sheer scale of the galactic map. Trillions of lives flickered like data points, entire wars condensed to red dots on a screen. "Guess this means I'm drafted, huh?" Guilliman looked at him, a glimmer of dry humour in his eyes. "Consider it a temporary alliance." Ben smirked weakly, tapping the Omnitrix. "Well, if you need a giant four-armed wrecking ball, a super-speed blur, or, a literal walking firestorm, I've got you covered." Guilliman's gaze lingered on the device. "We shall see, Ben Tennyson. We shall see." And in that moment, as the war table cast its glow across them both, the boy and the Primarch, the deal was struck. One sought a way home, the other sought survival for his Imperium. And between them, the shadow of Vilgax loomed ever larger. The heart of Terra beat in silence beneath the marble halls and golden vaults of the Imperial Palace. Few living beings had ever seen its true depths, vaulted catacombs of steel and fire where the Mechanicus worked in secret, far from the prying eyes of the ecclesiarchy or the Inquisition. Here, in one of the sealed research labs, known only to the Lord Commander himself, sparks hissed against iron walls. The air was thick with the scent of incense and machine oil, candles flickering against looming forms of machinery that had not known rest in 10,000 years. At the centre of the forge, a circle of luminescent runes glowed on the floor, casting emerald shadows up to the vaulted ceiling. The glow came from one source, the alien device on Ben Tennyson's wrist. The Omnitrix pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Ben stood stiffly, arms crossed, shifting from one sneaker to the other. His eyes flicked nervously to the figures in red robes that circled him like carrion crows. They were tall, spindly, half-machine men with vox emitters crackling where mouths should be. Their servo arms clicked, their eyes glowed with augmetic lenses, and their robes smelt faintly of oil. "The Mechanicus again," Ben muttered under his breath, because that went so well last time. Rabute Guilliman stood at his side, towering above him like a steel-covered mountain. Even in the dim light of the forge, his cobalt blue and gold armour gleamed, every inch etched with the laurels of victory. His face was calm, but his presence carried the weight of an approaching storm. "They are not the same as the priests who attacked you," Guilliman said, his voice steady and commanding. These are my chosen. Scholars, not zealots. They will not lay a hand upon you. Not without my word. Ben glanced up at him, chewing his lip. The Primarch's words carried authority like no one he had ever met before. Slowly, Ben exhaled and let his arms drop. "All right," he muttered. "I trust you, big guy. But if one of these toaster fanboys tries to poke me with a screwdriver, I'm gone." A faint smile tugged at Guilliman's lips, almost imperceptible. "Noted." The Mechanicus Magos stepped forward, his voice crackling through a vox grill. "Subject, designate Tennyson. Observation, anomalous device retains active warp null signatures. Hypothesis, potential capacity for xenogenetic integration. Request, permission to test." Ben raised an eyebrow. "In English, please." Guilliman translated without hesitation. "They wish to see if your device can absorb and replicate the forms of alien species within this galaxy." Ben blinked. "You mean like new aliens? New transformations?" The Omnitrix pulsed on his wrist, glowing yellow. Ben's eyes widened. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." The Magos extended a tray on servo arms, each compartment sealed with stasis fields that hummed with energy. Within, glowing vials of genetic material floated in suspension. Samples taken from Xenos species across the stars. One vial pulsed with the faint, psychic taint of Tyranid DNA, organic strand twitching as if alive. Another was jagged, throbbing with green energy. Orc spores condensed into genetic essence. The last gleamed faintly blue, the refined genetic sample of a Tau firecast warrior. Ben's mouth went dry. "You want me to add those to the Omnitrix?" Guilliman's eyes fixed on him, steady as iron. "Only if you can. But understand, boy, knowledge is power. The Imperium must understand this device. And you may need every weapon at your disposal if Vilgax truly lurks in our stars." Ben hesitated, then looked down at the Omnitrix. The dial shimmered with green light, waiting. Slowly he nodded. "All right, let's do this." The Magos released the stasis locks. One by one, beams of scanning energy lanced from the tray into the Omnitrix. The green glow flickered, then shifted. For the first time since Ben had arrived in this universe, the light turned yellow. The hum of the forge deepened, like a great machine drawing breath. Sparks cascaded across the runes at Ben's feet. The Omnitrix pulsed, brighter, stronger, scanning the alien DNA. Its interface whirred, symbols shifting and realigning, until finally the glow steadied. On the dial, 3 new silhouettes flickered, alien forms never before seen in Ben's arsenal. Ben hesitated for a moment, then pressed down on the dial. The forge erupted in a flash of green light. His body warped, shifted, expanded. When the light faded, a towering figure stood where Ben had been, 7 feet tall, clad in the armor of the Firecast. His eyes glowed faintly blue. His voice came out deeper, modulated, with a strange metallic undertone. "Whoa," Ben said, looking down at his massive, digitigrade legs and armoured chest. Talk about an upgrade. He flexed his fingers, watching them click against the plasma rifle provided to him. It feels clean, sharp, like every movement's on point. Guilliman studied him with a critical eye. You bear the form of a Tau fire warrior. Their empire is small, but their technology is efficient. The Magos gestured, and servo arms extended measuring devices. Physical test, commence. Ben was put through a gauntlet of trials: strength, speed, weapon accuracy. Plasma bolts streaked across the chamber, striking targets dead center. His movements were precise, his balance near perfect. For the first time since arriving in the grim dark galaxy, Ben felt hopeful. Guess this means I'm finally good at basketball, he joked, twirling the plasma rifle. Guilliman allowed himself the faintest smile. Do not grow overconfident. This is but one form. The dial spun again. This time, when Ben slammed it down, the transformation was explosive. His body expanded like a detonation, muscles bulging with grotesque power. His skin turned mottled green, tusks jutted from his jaw. Armor plates and crude metal grew across his shoulders. When the light cleared, a hulking orc war boss loomed over the chamber, nearly 10 feet tall. His voice boomed, guttural and raw. Whoa, now this feels good. He stomped a foot, cracking the stone floor beneath him. His massive fists clenched, and the urge to smash, fight, destroy burned in his blood. Ben's human mind reeled against the flood of instinct. I feel strong, he growled, slamming his fists together with a thunderclap. Like I could fight anything, anyone. Guilliman's expression hardened, one hand drifting toward the hilt of his sword. Control yourself, Ben. The orcs are a plague upon the galaxy. Their hunger for war is endless. Ben gritted his tusked teeth, forcing himself to focus. He smashed through reinforced targets, lifted tons of steel as though they were toys, roared until the forge walls trembled. The Magos recorded every metric, their excitement hidden beneath static-filled voices. Finally, breathing hard, Ben forced the Omnitrix to time out, shrinking back to his human self. He staggered, sweat dripping from his brow. Okay, he panted. Note to self, don't stay green too long. That was a lot. Guilliman placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. You did well, but the final trial will not be so easy. The chamber darkened as the final vial was scanned. The Omnitrix pulsed brighter than ever before, its glow flickering with an unnatural, almost organic rhythm. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. I guess we're doing this then, he muttered. He twisted the dial and slammed it down. The transformation was violent. His body twisted, bones snapping and reforming, flesh mutating into chitinous armor. His spine elongated, claws burst from his hands, and his jaw split into rows of serrated teeth. When the light faded, a Carnifex stood where Ben had been, a towering monstrosity of claw, fang, and armoured plates. The ground shook beneath his weight. Ben's voice was barely recognisable, distorted by alien hunger. So strong, so hungry. The Magos's lens flickered wildly, recording every twitch. Guilliman's hand moved again to his sword. His gaze was sharp and wary. Ben staggered forward, claws digging into the steel floor. The hunger was unbearable, gnawing at his mind, demanding that he feed, consume, devour. Then it hit. A psychic scream ripped through his skull. He reeled, clutched his head, monstrous claws scraping sparks from the walls. The Hive mind had found him. Billions and billions of alien voices roared into his brain all at once, an endless tide of hunger and command. He could feel the shadow in the warp stretching toward him, locking onto him like prey. They know, Ben choked out, his voice a distorted roar. They're in my head. They're trying to control me. The forge erupted into chaos. The Mechanicus scrambled, chanting binaric prayers. Warning sirens blared. Guilliman drew his blade, its psychic flame roaring to life. Hold, Ben, the Primarch bellowed. Fight it. But the Carnifex staggered, claws slamming into the war table, shattering it in a spray of sparks. Ben's eyes glowed a sickly alien green. His voice twisted, layered with the echo of countless Tyranid minds. Hunger. Feed. Guilliman stepped forward, his sword blazing, his presence like a sun in the darkness. Ben Tennyson. Resist. Ben roared, every nerve on fire, the hive mind clawing at his soul. The Omnitrix on his wrist pulsed, green, flickering, screaming. And then, darkness. Darkness. Endless, suffocating darkness. Ben drifted in it, weightless, like he was tumbling through an ocean of black water. Echoes whispered in the void. Alien voices, millions of them, shrieking, growling, gnashing, consuming. He could feel the claws at the edges of his mind, tearing, pulling, demanding. Consume, feed, strip, devour. A sudden weight crushed him, then light. Ben gasped, his eyes flying open. He was lying on cold stone, his chest heaving as if he'd been drowning. His human hands shook violently, clawing at the marble floor as though still expecting talons. The Omnitrix lay quiet against his wrist, dim, its green glow reduced to the faintest flicker. Above him loomed the Titan of Ultramar. Rabute Guilliman knelt beside him, one gauntleted hand resting lightly against Ben's shoulder. The Primarch's face was calm, but stern, his eyes the steel blue of a glacier that had never thawed. Around them, the forge was in disarray. Servo skulls hovered, Magi chanted binaric stabilization hymns, incense smoke curled thick and acrid from extinguished braziers. "You live," Guilliman said simply. Ben swallowed hard, pushing himself up on weak arms. His voice cracked. I felt it. All of it. The hive mind. It's not like anything I've ever experienced. It wasn't just voices. It was like being drowned in hunger. Millions, billions of voices, all screaming the same thing. His eyes flicked to Guilliman, wide with lingering fear. They don't stop. They can't stop. All they want is to eat, to strip worlds bare. I thought I was going to disappear into it, like I wasn't even me anymore. Guilliman listened in silence, his face grave. "We theorized this might happen," the Primarch finally said, his voice low and heavy with the weight of a commander's calculus. "The hive mind does not merely control its spawn, it is them. Every Tyranid is an extension of its will. By becoming one of its creatures, even for a moment, you opened yourself to its song." Ben rubbed his temples, wincing. Song? More like a death metal concert from hell. A faint, ghostly smirk tugged at Guilliman's lips, gone almost as soon as it appeared. "And yet, you resisted. Few mortals could have endured that connection for even a heartbeat. You may have felt overwhelmed, but you held on to yourself. That is no small feat." Ben slumped back, letting out a shaky breath. "Feels like my brain's been chewed up and spat out. No offense, but if you're about to suggest I do that again, big guy, the answer's no." Guilliman's gaze did not waver. "I am suggesting precisely that." Ben's head snapped toward him. "Are you serious? Did you not hear the part where I said billions of voices screaming in my skull? I barely held on. What if next time I don't?" The Primarch straightened, towering over him like a living statue. His voice carried the weight of thunder in a cathedral. "Because if you can endure it again, even briefly, then you can do what no Psyker, no Inquisitor, no Astropath has ever accomplished. You can infiltrate the hive mind. You can listen, not as prey, but as one of its soldiers. And through you, we may learn where the hive fleet gathers its strength. If we can find it, we can strike, destroy it before it falls upon another world." Ben froze, staring up at him. "You want me to spy on the hive mind?" Guilliman nodded once. Ben's gut churned. He wrapped his arms around himself, shaking his head. I don't like this. I'm not a soldier. Killing is not what I do. Yeah, I fight bad people, monsters, sure, but the Omnitrix was never about wiping species out." Guilliman knelt again, his colossal frame bringing his eyes level with Ben's. His tone softened slightly, but it was no less firm. "Then feel for yourself. When you connect again, listen deeper. Taste their hunger. See if they are a people, or if they are simply hunger made flesh. If they are anything more than mindless consumption, you will know. If they are not, then you will understand why the Imperium cannot show them mercy." Ben bit his lip. He wanted to argue. He wanted to refuse. But the memory of that overwhelming tide of hunger still gnawed at his mind. He had already felt it. He already knew deep down what Guilliman was saying. Finally, he exhaled, his shoulders slumping. "Fine. One more time. But if this thing eats my brain, I'm blaming you." Guilliman's hand closed gently but firmly on his shoulder. "I will not allow it. Stand. We will do this together." The forge chamber was cleared. Mechanicus adepts retreated to the perimeter, their lenses glowing faintly in the incense haze. Guilliman stood beside Ben. Ben stared at the Omnitrix. Its dial gleamed with that alien yellow, flickering faintly as if resisting his will. His thumb hovered over it. "Round 2, he muttered, and slammed it down. The light consumed him. His body writhed, flesh tearing and reforming, bones splitting, skin hardening into armor. When the glow faded, the carnifex loomed once more in the forge, the ground shaking beneath his claws. And then the voices returned. A tidal wave of thought smashed into him, thousands of minds screaming at once, a chorus of endless hunger. Feed, strip, devour, all flesh, all life, feed. Ben staggered, claws gouging trenches in the floor. His monstrous head thrashed from side to side, fighting to keep control. "It's too much, too loud," he growled, his voice a warped echo of his own. Guilliman's voice cut through the storm like an iron bell. "Hold, Ben. Do not fight the tide. Ride it. Listen." Ben clutched his head, roaring. "It's all hunger. There's nothing else. Just killing, feeding. It's all they are." "Good," Guilliman barked. "Now probe deeper. Look beyond the hunger. Tell me what you see." Ben forced himself still, trembling. He closed his alien eyes. He let the tide crash against him, threatening to tear him apart. And then slowly, he sank into it. Images flared across his mind. A world torn to ash, its oceans boiling away. Cities reduced to skeletons of metal. Swarms blotting out the sun. Wings and claws and teeth in a storm without end. And then, something else. A star system. A sun burning red, swollen and furious. Around it orbited jagged planets, one blue-green, one cracked and volcanic, another a gas giant with rings that gleamed like knives. Ben gasped, his monstrous frame trembling. I see it. A system, planets, a red sun. They're moving there, gathering. The Omnitrix shrieked. The glow flickered, pulsed, then cut. The transformation ended in a flare of green light. Ben collapsed to the stone floor, gasping, his body his own again. His hands shook violently as he clutched his head. Guilliman knelt beside him, steady as a mountain. "Draw it, now, while it is fresh in your mind." A parchment and quill were thrust into Ben's hand by a waiting servo skull. His fingers shook, but he sketched the image, the red sun, the planets, the rings. It was crude, but clear enough. The Mechanicus Magi swarmed the parchment, their mechadendrites whirring as they scanned and compared. Streams of binaric code hissed into the air. One of them turned, their vox grill rasping. "Match confirmed. System, designation Peridos, edge of segmentum Pacificus. Astronomical records, red giant star with 3 confirmed worlds. Probability of Hive fleet trajectory, high." Guilliman rose, towering above them all. His voice thundered like a war horn. "Transmit coordinates to the battle fleet Pacificus. Order reconnaissance. They are to approach with utmost caution. The Imperium will not be caught unprepared." The Magi bowed, retreating to their consoles. Guilliman turned back to Ben. For the first time, his gaze had softened. "You have done the Imperium a great service this day, Ben Tennyson. Countless worlds may owe their survival to you." Ben managed a weak grin. "Yeah, well, I'm glad my brain-melting nightmare visions could help." Guilliman's face grew solemn. He rested a hand on Ben's shoulder once more, and I am a man of my word. While you endured, the Mechanicus searched the sealed archives at my command, records that have not been touched in millennia. We have found something, a name. It may concern the one you seek. Ben's breath caught, his eyes widened. Vilgax. Guilliman's silence was answer enough. The forge lights flickered, the shadows stretched long. This war was only just beginning. The forge chamber had grown quiet, save for the distant hymns of the Mechanicus and the faint hum of ancient engines buried deep within the fortress monastery. Smoke curled upward in slow, ghostly streams, coiling through the light of lumen strips that flickered above. Rabute Guilliman stood like a statue, wrought of steel and marble, gazing down at the data slate in his hands. His face, normally the mask of a commander who bore the weight of entire systems upon his shoulders, was shadowed by something rare: hesitation. Ben sat nearby on the cold stone, still recovering from his brutal second descent into the Hive mind. His head throbbed as though a swarm still crawled through his skull, but the moment Guilliman's voice had hardened when he mentioned the name Vilgax, Ben's pain had dulled to a nervous knot in his chest. Now the Primarch's blue eyes flicked across the slate once more before he finally spoke. "There is a record," Guilliman said, his voice resonant yet softer than usual. "Fragmentary, but unmistakable. A being matching the description you gave. Immense, armoured, possessed of tremendous strength. It was encountered by the Imperium in the early days of the Great Crusade." Ben blinked, eyebrows raised. Wait, the Great Crusade? What's that again?" Guilliman turned the slate over in his hand, almost absently. Then his gaze lifted, and for a moment, his eyes seemed to look not at Ben, but through him, backwards in time, across the gulf of 10,000 years. "The Great Crusade," Guilliman said slowly, as if the words themselves carried weight, "was the dawn of the Imperium as you see it now. When my father, the Emperor of mankind, first united Terra, he did not stop there. He sent forth vast fleets to reunite humanity scattered among the stars. Billions of worlds, thousands of alien species. Most fell before us. Some joined willingly. Others were annihilated. It was an age of conquest, of expansion, of glory, and of blood." Ben swallowed. The way Guilliman spoke, it wasn't boasting, it was remembering. A man recalling not just his victories, but his atrocities too. "So," Ben rubbed the back of his neck, "that means Vilgax was around back then, like thousands of years ago?" "Indeed," Guilliman said. "This record states he was encountered during an expedition in the Eastern Fringe. At the time, the expeditionary fleets moved swiftly. There was little patience for drawn-out campaigns. Countless species were catalogued only briefly before being destroyed or ignored. Records, when kept at all, were often incomplete." He scrolled through the slate, the glow of runes painting his face with pale light. "But this entry," he continued, "is clear enough. Vilgax was alive in the 30th millennium. He fought Imperial forces, and then..." Guilliman's brow furrowed, his lips tightened. He read the next line again and again. Ben leaned forward, his heart hammering. And then what? Guilliman's expression darkened like storm clouds gathering, his gauntleted fingers clenched around the slate. According to this, Guilliman said, Vilgax vanished. The report states he was engaged upon a contested world, fought not only by Imperium forces, but by another Xenos power, an unidentified species, not then known to the Imperium. The Primarch's voice grew quieter. His eyes narrowed at the words etched into the slate. And yet, Guilliman murmured, almost to himself, these descriptions, these weapons, these constructs of living metal, these green energies that unmade flesh and stone alike. His eyes widened. For the first time since Ben had met him, Brabute Guilliman looked almost shaken. Ben noticed instantly. His pulse spiked. What? What is it? You look like you've seen a ghost. Guilliman's jaw set. He lowered the slate, his gaze locking onto Ben. At the time, they were classified as unidentified Xenos. But with what we know now, there is no doubt. The enemy described here could only have been the Necrons. The word hit the air like a funeral bell. Ben frowned, thinking hard. Necrons? I think I read something about them once. They're like evil robots, right? Guilliman's face hardened, his voice grave. They are not merely machines. They are a civilization older than humanity itself, perhaps older than the galaxy's stars. Once living beings, long ago they traded flesh for cold, immortal metal. Their dynasties slumbered in crypts for eons, waiting. And now, they have started to wake up. Their weapons are beyond comprehension. Their cruelty is absolute. They are one of the greatest threats to all life in the galaxy. Ben's stomach dropped. Yeah, okay, definitely bad. Guilliman returned his gaze to the slate, his voice grim. Which means I now believe I know what became of your enemy, this Vilgax. He was not killed. He was taken. Ben's eyes widened. Taken? By who? The report makes mention of a leader among the Necron forces, Guilliman said, scanning the slate again. At the time, the Imperium did not understand who or what he was, but the signs are clear to me now. A self-styled king of eternity, an obsession with preserving the rare, the unique, the powerful. There is only one he could be. Guilliman's gaze rose, his voice a quiet thunder. Trazyn the Infinite. Ben froze. The name itself seemed to chill the forge chamber. So what you're saying is... Ben licked his lips nervously. Vilgax was killed by this Trazyn guy. Guilliman shook his head. No. If anything, the opposite. Trazyn is not known only for slaughter, but for collecting. He steals what he desires. Heroes, tyrants, artifacts, entire armies, preserving them as trophies. If Vilgax was strong enough to defy the Imperium, then Trazyn would have coveted him. No, I do not believe Vilgax is dead. I believe he is a prisoner, a piece in Trazyn's twisted gallery. Ben's heart skipped a beat, his fists clenched. Then that's great news. We just need to find Trazyn and his collection, rescue Vilgax, and boom, we're done. A faint smile touched Guilliman's lips at the boy's relentless optimism, but it was the smile of a weary father humouring a child. "It is not so simple," Guilliman said. "The location of Trazyn's collection is unknown. He hides within labyrinths of Blackstone, across tomb worlds that shift like a maze. Even the Inquisition has failed to track him." And his gaze hardened. "It is not a priority for the Imperium. We are beset by 1,000 enemies, our resources already stretched thin. I have held up my end of our bargain, Ben Tennyson. I have given you the truth that you sought." Guilliman turned, his massive armoured form walking toward the chamber doors. The servo skulls parted before him, incense trailing in his wake. Ben sat frozen for a moment, his thoughts racing. Then his eyes narrowed. He scrambled to his feet. "Wait!" Guilliman stopped. Slowly he turned, his glacier blue eyes fixing once more on the boy. Ben's heart pounded, but he forced himself to stand tall, fists at his sides. "Don't walk away from this," Ben said. "You want to beat the Tyranids, right? You want to save the Imperium? Then you need every advantage you can get. And I'm telling you, help me find Trazyn, and you'll get more than just Vilgax. You'll get his whole collection." Guilliman tilted his head slightly, curious despite himself. "And why would I concern myself with the spoils of a Xenos hoarder?" Ben stepped closer, his voice firm. "Because think about what might be in there. Weapons, artifacts, maybe even things from that dark age of technology you guys are always talking about. Things that could help turn the tide. If Vilgax is in there, who knows what else Trazyn has locked away? Stuff you can use. Stuff the Imperium needs." The chamber fell silent. Guilliman stood motionless, studying Ben. His towering frame, his ancient armour, his centuries of command, all bore down on the boy like the weight of a star. And yet, Ben didn't flinch. Finally, slowly, the Primarch's stern expression softened, and a rare smile crossed his lips. "You are bold," Guilliman said, "and you think quickly. Traits that have carried many leaders far. Very well, Ben Tennyson. I will consider your proposal. But first, we must do what no force of the Imperium has yet accomplished." Ben tilted his head. "Which is?" Guilliman's eyes gleamed like steel clutching the dawn. "Locate Trazyn the Infinite." The words echoed through the chamber like the toll of a great bell. The path ahead was treacherous, veiled in shadow. But for the first time since arriving in this grim, endless war, Ben felt something spark inside him. Hope. The fortress monastery's forge chamber was alive with the rumble of machines and the chants of many. Mechanicus adepts worked in distant alcoves, their hymn voices echoing like whispers of the Omnissiah. Sacred smoke curled upward, forming halos around steel arches. Rabute Guilliman stood at the heart of it all, his massive form outlined against the glow of lumen strips. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, were fixed upon a single figure who sat cross-legged on the floor, fiddling idly with his Omnitrix. "Ben Tennyson," Guilliman said, his voice low, like thunder carried across a mountain range. Ben looked up, blinking. He could see it, the faint crease in the Primarch's brow, the tautness in his jaw. Guilliman, for all his towering calm, was frustrated. "You asked me to consider your proposal," Guilliman continued, "and I did. Entire task forces have been assigned to the pursuit of Trazyn the Infinite. Astropaths have combed through shadowed records. Explorator fleets chart forgotten tomb worlds. And yet," he gestured sharply, the sound of armoured fingers against metal, like a blade striking stone, "we have found nothing." Ben winced. "Okay, that's not great news." "Not great," Guilliman repeated, his tone ice-sharp. "The Necrons are not prey one stalks easily. They veil themselves within labyrinths, hidden by technologies older than our Imperium. Even the most diligent search yields silence." Ben stood, brushing dust from his jeans. He squared his shoulders, though Guilliman's gaze alone threatened to crush him. "Then let me help," Ben said firmly. "Give me access to the archives. I can find him." Guilliman's eyes narrowed. "That is highly unorthodox. The archives of man are not open to the uninitiated, much less to a Xenos child." "Hey," Ben shot back, pointing at himself. "I'm not a Xenos. I'm human with an alien watch. There's a big difference." Guilliman's lips pressed into a line, but then his gaze softened just slightly. "And yet," the Primarch said, "perhaps you have earned some trust. When last we spoke, you guided our fleets toward a Tyranid advance you claimed to have seen in your vision. That information proved true. The expeditionary fleet encountered the Hive tendrils exactly as you described." Ben grinned. "See? I told you I'm reliable." Guilliman's voice, however, grew colder. "We unleashed Exterminatus upon the system, every world, all reduced in order to halt the Tyranid spread." Ben blinked. "Oh well, it sounds cool. I'm glad I could help." The Primarch's stare lingered on him for a long, silent moment. Then, with a slow exhale, Guilliman turned toward the towering doors. "Very well. You shall have access to the archives. Show me that your boldness is matched by ability." The archives of the Imperium stretched like an infinite labyrinth of knowledge. Marble pillars rose higher than buildings. Data scrolls, etched crystal tablets, and glowing holospheres hung suspended in the air, moved by servo skulls like candles in a cathedral. The air smelled of old incense and oil, as though time itself still burned here. Ben stepped into the chamber, awe lighting his face. "Okay, this is way cooler than the plumber's base." He tapped his Omnitrix. In a swirl of green light, his body shifted, sleek and black. Circuits spread like living veins across the stone as Upgrade emerged. The archives lit up instantly with green streams of code as he interfaced. Data poured into him, endless lists of expedition reports, star maps, battle records, half-corrupted Imperium logs. His form rippled as he processed it, every pulse of energy pulling deeper into hidden vaults of knowledge. Processing, cross-referencing, eliminating redundancies, his mechanical voice droned. Hours became days. Upgrade became grey matter, scribbling calculations on ancient parchment, faster than scribes could blink. Then back to Upgrade to merge fractured records, then to grey matter again, stitching meaning into the fragments. Each transformation brought him closer, the archives bending under the storm of his alien genius. A week later, surrounded by piles of discarded scrolls and fading lumen orbs, Ben finally leaned back in human form, eyes bloodshot but gleaming. "I found him," he whispered. When Guilliman arrived, he found the boy standing beside a vast star map, glowing runes casting green light across his young face. Ben pointed to a single system near the galactic north, deep within the Necron tomb complexes. "There, the Solemnus system. It's Trazyn's home, his, gallery thing." Guilliman's expression shifted. The faintest smile curved his lips. "You never cease to surprise me, Ben Tennyson." Ben grinned, throwing his arms out dramatically. "I told you I could do it. Now let's roll in with the biggest army you've got and smash this guy to pieces." Guilliman's face hardened again. "No. A fleet, vast enough to assail a tomb world, would be seen long before it arrived. Necron defences would awaken, and we might lose entire crusades in a single volley." Ben frowned. "So what do we do?" Guilliman stepped closer, his voice low and certain. "We go with a small force. Silent, precise, a blade rather than a hammer." Ben's chest swelled with determination. "Then I'm in. I'll know Vilgax when I see him, and the Omnitrix can handle anything this Trazyn throws at us." Guilliman studied him for a long time, then nodded. "Yes, you will join us. As will I." Ben blinked. "Wait, you're going too?" Guilliman's gaze was like iron. "This mission is too vital to entrust to others alone, and I will not send you into such peril without my oversight." Ben smiled faintly. "Thanks, I think." The Primarch turned toward the shadowed arch of the chamber. "We will not go alone. I have summoned one other. My brother." Ben's jaw nearly hit the floor. "Hold up. You have a brother?" Guilliman's rare smile returned, sharper this time. "I have several." From the doorway, armoured footsteps approached. A figure emerged from the shadows. His presence was commanding, his aura like a blade unsheathed. His armour was darker, wrought with Gothic lines, his mane of hair like a lion's, his eyes sharp as emeralds. Ben's mouth fell open. "Whoa." The figure inclined his head. "Lion L. Johnson, Primarch of the Dark Angels. It is an honour to meet the child who so fearlessly advises my brother." Ben gave a nervous wave. Hi. You're huge." Lion's lips twitched in the faintest smile. "Compared to some of my brothers, I am not so large." Guilliman clasped his brother's arm, steel striking steel. "He will accompany us, along with a squad of the Adeptus Custodes." The vessel that awaited them was no ordinary warship. Sleek and black as obsidian, it bore none of the towering spires or glaring cathedrals of standard Imperium craft. Instead, its frame shimmered faintly, almost invisible to the eye. Guilliman turned to Ben as they boarded. "A prototype. The Mechanicus have gifted us their most advanced stealth technology. A rare trust." Ben's eyes widened. "Okay, that's awesome." The ship slipped into the warp with barely a ripple, the Geller fields whispering rather than roaring. Hours stretched into days, but the Primarchs wasted none of them. Guilliman and the Lion planned in hushed tones, custodies standing like golden statues nearby. Ben tried to keep up, though most of it went over his head. At last, the black vessel emerged from the Imperium, silent as a shadow. Before them hung a dark world, studded with obsidian pyramids that stretched to the stars. The Solemnus Gallery. A smaller craft detached from the stealth ship, carrying Guilliman, the Lion, Ben, and their golden custodies escort. As they descended through the planet's toxic atmosphere, flashes of green lightning split the sky, illuminating pyramids that pierced the skies. The craft landed before one such structure, its surface carved with runes that glowed faintly with eerie power. The custodies moved first, their guardian spears raised, while the Primarchs followed like living gods. Ben lingered close, his eyes darting at the shifting green glyphs. Okay, seriously creepy place. Not even Hex's castle was this bad. They reached the base of the pyramid, where a titanic door of living metal sealed the way. Guilliman pressed his gauntlet against the surface. No entry point. The construct responds only to Necron command codes. Translation, Ben muttered. We're locked out. The Lion frowned, his hand on the hilt of his blade. We cannot breach it without alerting the entire tomb. Ben smirked, tapping the Omnitrix. Good thing I've got a key. With a flash of green, his body shimmered, turned pale and translucent. Wraith-like, his eyes glowed white as he slipped into the form of Ghost Freak. He phased straight through the door. On the other side, he reappeared with a grin, flickering ghostlight casting shadows. Boo. The door groaned, ancient gears shifting as the lock disengaged. Slowly, the pyramid opened. Guilliman and the Lion exchanged a glance. For the first time in decades, both Primarchs smiled at each other. Far away, deep within the labyrinthine halls of the gallery, countless holospheres flickered to life. Trazyn the Infinite reclined upon a throne of sculpted obsidian. His metallic form was draped in regal robes, his staff of command resting lazily in his hand. His featureless faceplate tilted as he observed the intruders on his screen. The towering Primarchs, their golden guardians, and the strange, shifting child who had turned into a wraith to open the gates. The Necron overlord's voice was a metallic purr, amusement dripping from every note. Ah, what curious guests fate has delivered me. Guilliman reborn, the Lion awakened, and this. His gaze was fixed on Ben, pausing the image as Ghost Freak shifted back to human form. This little anomaly, a child who wears the skins of many. How fascinating. Trazyn leaned forward, his optics gleaming emerald. Yes, he shall make a most exquisite addition to my collection. The doors of living metal creaked open with a groan that shook the pyramid to its foundations. The air beyond was heavy with the scent of ozone and the chill of ages long past. Green light bled from within, shimmering across the chamber's black stone walls like veins of fire. Guilliman stepped forward first, his colossal frame casting a shadow across the threshold. Lion L. Johnson followed, silent and wary, his emerald eyes glinting as though searching every corner for hidden enemies. The Custodes advanced in formation, their guardian spears glowing faintly as their auramite armour drank in the eerie green light. Ben lingered close behind, his eyes wide, his heart pounding in both awe and dread. "Okay," he muttered, his voice trembling despite his attempts at bravado. Creepy factor just went up from 11 to like 100. The chamber was vast beyond comprehension. Stretching away into the gloom were endless rows of stasis pods, vitrines, crystalline display cases, and monolithic cages of shimmering phase iron. Each was filled with objects of staggering strangeness and beauty. Ben gasped. "It's like the world's biggest museum, except way scarier." The lion's voice was low, edged with disgust. "It's a mausoleum of plunder." Guilliman's face hardened. "A vault of stolen ages." Trazyn's obsession made manifest. They moved deeper. The gallery spread before them like an infinite cathedral of memory, lit by cold emerald lumens that glimmered off treasures from countless civilizations. One display held the shattered remains of a Xenos war engine, its armor etched with hieroglyphs older than the stars. Its broken faceplate still dripped faint energy, as though straining to awaken. Another case held the frozen corpse of a space marine, clad in Mark II Crusade armor, perfectly preserved as though waiting for orders that would never come. Ben stopped before a towering stasis field where a living battle was preserved. 2 colossal orcs were locked in combat with a Lehman Russ tank, frozen mid-strike as if time itself had been halted. He stared slack-jawed. "That's insane. Like a museum exhibit crossed with a video game pause screen." Farther down, he saw entire ecosystems sealed in crystal domes. An Eldar maiden world, its forests miniaturized. A hive of Tyranid creatures dissected mid-attack. Their claws were suspended inches from a screaming Imperial guard line. The lion snarled softly. "He takes not just lives, but moments. History itself caged." Guilliman's jaw clenched. "It is blasphemy. Knowledge is to be preserved for the Imperium, not hoarded by a carrion lord." Ben shivered. This guy's got issues. They pressed on until the chamber narrowed into a vaulted corridor. Strange cases lined the path, artifacts humming with power that prickled Ben's skin. Some looked like weapons, others like fragments of alien machines. Then, faintly, a voice drifted through the silence. "Ben." The sound was broken, weak, but unmistakable. Ben froze. His eyes widened as he spun toward the source. Guilliman and the lion turned sharply, their weapons half raised. The Custodes swept their spears across the hall, their golden armor gleaming. Again the voice, ragged, shocked, heavy with disbelief. "Ben Tennyson." Ben's breath caught in his throat. No way. At the far end of the corridor, a massive cage of shimmering green energy flickered into view. Within, chained and battered, was a figure Ben knew better than any nightmare. Vilgax, the alien warlord, conqueror of 1,000 worlds, scourge of Ben's childhood, loomed within the prison. His tentacles hung heavy and limp, his crimson eyes dull, yet burning faintly with recognition. Scars and cybernetic grafts marred his body, yet the iron aura of his presence remained. Ben's fists clenched, his face twisted with fury. Vilgax. Ben rushed to the cage, his sneakers slapping against the obsidian floor. He slammed his palms against the crackling barrier, ignoring the sparks of pain. Vilgax's eyes widened, his monstrous face breaking into something like awe and disbelief. "It is you. Impossible." His voice was a guttural rasp, aged and cracked by millennia. Ben squared his shoulders, anger flashing. "Yeah, it's me. You've got some nerve saying my name after all the times you tried to wipe me out." The warlord leaned forward, chains rattling against his scarred chest. His words came low, almost reverent. "The last time I saw you, I destroyed you. I remember it clearly. My weapon, the one forged from power beyond imagining, it struck you down. I watched you turn to dust. That day was my triumph." Ben frowned, confusion cutting through his fury. "Yeah, about that. Whatever it was, it didn't destroy me. It sent me here, to this crazy future." Vilgax's eyes blazed, disbelief battling against certainty. "No, that weapon was my salvation. It did not just end you. It gave me endurance beyond flesh. 30,000 years I endured. 30,000 years of conquest, until even time itself bent beneath me. Until Trazyn took me in battle." Ben shook his head, unsettled by the weight in the alien's words. "Well, you're wrong about one thing. You didn't end me, Vilgax. I'm still here, and now, so are you." Ben's voice lowered. "What was it, Vilgax? What kind of weapon does that?" Vilgax's lips curled into a grimace. "I will answer no more unless you free me." Ben scowled. "Not a chance. You've lied more times than I can count. But I'll consider it if you cooperate." A rumbling growl echoed from the alien's chest, but after a long silence, Vilgax's shoulders slumped. His voice trembled with something Ben had never heard before. Desperation. "I will. I must. Years, centuries, I have rotted here in this prison, unable to die. Madness claws at me. Anything is better than silence." Ben nodded slowly. "Fine. Then talk." Vilgax's eyes glowed faintly. "I do not know what the weapon was. Only this. It was given to me by an emissary, a being who claimed to be from the future. He placed it in my hand, told me it would end you once and for all, along with all my enemies. I believed him." Ben's stomach twisted. "Someone from the future? Who?" "I do not know. His form was hidden. His voice was wrong. But the weapon, yes. It gave me strength. It prolonged my life indefinitely. And when I fired it, it cast my enemies into oblivion." Ben's throat went dry. "What happened to it?" Vilgax's head lowered, his chains rattling. "It was with me when I was captured. Trazyn took it. He takes everything." As if on cue, a voice echoed through the chamber, smooth, amused and metallic. "Indeed I do. The air shimmered. At the far end of the chamber, a figure stepped out of the shadow. Trazyn the Infinite, regal in emerald and obsidian. His metallic robes swirled as if moved by phantom winds, and his staff of command clicked sharply against the stone. His faceplate gleamed blankly, but his voice dripped with glee. The custodies snapped into formation, their spears raised. Guilliman and the lion shifted instantly into battle stance. Ben backed away from Vilgax's cage, his fists balled, his eyes narrowing. Trazyn's laughter rolled like thunder. With a flick of his staff, arcs of emerald energy surged across the hall. In an instant, the custodies froze, their forms encased in shimmering stasis cages that snapped shut like jaws of light. Ben gasped. No. Only Guilliman, the lion, and Ben remained free. Guilliman's voice was a growl of restrained fury. The weapon. It is yours, isn't it? Trazyn tilted his head mockingly. Clever ape, always so quick to guess. The Necron overlord stepped closer, gesturing with lazy grace. Yes, I discovered it, ages ago. A device that twists time and space itself. I refined it, sculpted it, and scattered it across history, gifting it to warriors, tyrants, and kings. Each one unleashed it against foes greater than themselves. Each victim was cast here, into my domain. Ben's blood ran cold. Wait, you mean... Trazyn's voice was silk and venom. Yes, child, every blast, every strike was not death. It was a gift. The victim is displaced into my era, my planet. Some land in my halls directly, others scatter across this age. You, his faceless head tilted, optics flaring. You saved me the trouble of searching. Ben's fists shook. You're going to send me back, right now, or I swear. Trazyn's laughter cut him off. Back? Oh no, boy. You are far too interesting. A relic unlike any other. You will make a fine addition to my collection. Ben's hand slammed against the Omnitrix. The green dial lit up. His voice roared through the chamber. Try it, tinhead. Let's see who ends up in a cage. Emerald light engulfed him. When it faded, a glittering, crystalline titan stood where Ben had been. Jagged shards of diamond jutted from his arms, his body gleaming like a living fortress. Diamond Head slammed his fists together, shards sparking. Bring it on. Guilliman's blade sang from its scabbard. Lion L. Johnson unleashed the lion sword, its runes blazing. Together, the Primarchs and Ben charged. The chamber of Trazyn the Infinite seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions, the walls lined with artifacts, shimmering cages, and the glow of countless preserved ages. The Necron overlord stood at the centre, his faceless helm tilted, observing the three intruders with a patience that was almost predatory. Guilliman, the lion, and Diamond Head stood poised at the ready, each aware that a single mistake could mean eternity in the gallery. Trazyn moved. A flick of his staff sent a cascade of golden blades spinning through the air, each one slicing across the floor with supernatural precision. Guilliman deflected them with a series of practiced parries, his massive sword singing as it met the lethal metal. The lion moved silently, dodging and weaving, his blade slicing through the nearest spinning weapon with a whisper of energy. Diamond Head fired jagged shards into the approaching artifacts, only to see them dissolve and reform moments later. Interesting, Trazyn's metallic voice purred. So eager, yet so naive. He lifted a hand, and entire vitrines exploded, releasing fields of psychic and technological energy that flared outward. Ghostly visions of warriors long dead surged into the chamber, forcing Guilliman to raise his blade in a defensive arc as Diamond Head absorbed the psychic pulses into his indestructible frame. The lion's eyes burned with emerald fury, cutting through the illusions with precise strikes. Artifacts levitated and swirled, from the remnants of Imperial Titans to preserved Tyranid bioforms. Each object seemed to react to the attacker's movements, anticipating strikes, countering efforts, and reshaping the battlefield into an endless puzzle. Diamond Head transformed briefly into Upgrade, scrambling to interface with one of Trazyn's control nodes, only to have the holographic display flicker and vanish, replaced by a dozen more deadly distractions. Enough, Guilliman's voice boomed, reverberating through the hall. Trazyn thrives on distraction. Let him expend his tricks. The Primarch's tone carried authority that caused even the unyielding lion to hesitate, awaiting the signal. Minutes passed in a blur of flashes, clashes, and shards of light. Guilliman, the lion, and Ben began to feel the strain. Trazyn's manipulations were tireless. Every strike seemed anticipated, every attack redirected. Energy beams from preserved Xenos devices burned the floor, spectral chains rose from the ground, and entire constructs of Necron warriors emerged from hidden stasis pods to assault them. Diamond Head shattered several of the constructs, yet more seemed to materialize from the very walls. Heat surged, lighting arcing green circuits across his crystalline skin. This guy never quits, Ben muttered, switching to a hulking four-armed form, smashing Necron avatars into dust. Seriously, how does he even keep track of all this? Guilliman motioned to the other two, his gaze piercing. Wait. Do not exhaust yourselves. Follow my lead. My signal will determine the strike. We cannot win by brute force alone. Patience. Patience is our weapon. The lion's nod was slight, but precise, his blade cutting off a spire of energy threatening Guilliman's flank. Together, they held the line, absorbing and redirecting Trazyn's relentless assault. After a tense pause, Guilliman's armour bore scorch marks. His blade was dull from repeated clashes, but his posture remained commanding. He stepped forward, lowering his sword. Enough, he said. I yield. Take me. I offer myself willingly to your collection. Leave these two unscathed. Trazyn's optics glowed with a glimmer of curiosity, a pause in his otherwise tireless attack. Ah, how delicate, a Primarch begging for mercy. How pitiful. His tone dripped amusement, yet a flicker of something resembling doubt passed across his mechanical frame. No, I would not desire such a spineless, grovelling specimen. Guilliman's lips curved into a near imperceptible smile. I thought not, he said almost softly. At that precise moment, a searing inferno erupted from Diamond Head's crystal form. Ben had switched to Heat Blast, channeling his raw thermal energy into focused jets of fire, exploding across the chamber in arcs of molten light. The flames engulfed Trazyn, shrouding him in heat and light, temporarily blinding his optics and short-circuiting the nearest artifacts. Trazyn's metallic voice shrieked in anger. "Fool, fire is meaningless. You cannot destroy a machine." Sparks and shards of shattered artifacts covered the floor, yet his body withstood the assault. The lion roared, his sword blazing with runes of emerald fire. "Destruction comes in many forms, machine." He surged forward, closing the distance in a heartbeat, his blade slicing cleanly through the glowing haze. Guilliman's warning voice barely carried above the roar. "Now, lion!" The lion's strike landed true. Trazyn's head, the focus of his command and his arrogance, was severed in a single precise blow, his body toppling back amidst a cascade of sparks. The collected artifacts rattled, some collapsing, others stabilizing as the sudden absence of the Overlord's will left them momentarily inert. Guilliman wasted no time. "Ben, upgrade, stasis, now!" Ben transformed into upgrade, his form melding with the surrounding consoles. Green light rippled across the chamber as he accessed a control terminal, interfacing directly with Trazyn's own technology. Moments later, the deactivated body of the Necron Overlord was encased in a shimmering stasis field, preventing regeneration and rendering the once unstoppable foe inert. Then, moving with meticulous precision, Ben located one of the temporal weapons scattered in the gallery. Upgrade interfaced with the device, deciphering its mechanisms and recalibrating its settings. Moments of tense concentration passed as the Omnitrix's alien technology synced with Trazyn's temporal manipulator. Finally, a path home appeared. The three regrouped near the terminal, breathing heavy. The lion's armor bore the marks of relentless combat. Guilliman's armor was scorched and dented, but remained as commanding as ever. Ben wiped sweat from his brow. "So, what now?" Guilliman's gaze softened. "You are free to return to your world, Ben. A deal is a deal." Ben's eyes flicked toward Vilgax's cage. "And what about him?" Guilliman's lips pressed into a line. "Vilgax is your enemy. That remains unchanged. It is your judgment alone which decides his fate." Ben's jaw tightened. He's the biggest, worst guy I know. But spending 10,000 years in that cage, that's punishment enough. He can come with me, but only if he promises to be good. Vilgax's chains rattled as he straightened, crimson eyes locking onto Ben's. "I swear it. I will be good." Ben's hands moved quickly, opening the cage and firing the recalibrated weapon directly at the alien. Vilgax stumbled, the blast sending him through time, but to a specific location. Guilliman's optic widened in shock. Ben's grin was faint, but confident. "Relax. I calibrated it. He's going back to a very precise place. A prison facility back home. Safe, contained, and temporarily harmless." Ben activated the temporal device on himself. Light engulfed him, burning emerald and gold across the chamber. He turned to the Primarchs. "Thanks for everything, really. Good luck with, the war and stuff." Guilliman's rare smile was serene, heavy with respect. And you, Ben Tennyson, may your path remain your own. The lion inclined his head silently, a warrior's acknowledgement. With that, Ben vanished in a flash of light. When consciousness returned, Ben awoke in modern-day Earth, in the familiar hum of his city. The Omnitrix beat softly against his wrist, the memories of centuries-long battles flooding briefly before fading into the surreal. He took a deep breath, feeling the ground beneath his feet, alive and real. Back in Trazyn's pyramid, Guilliman and the lion moved cautiously among the wreckage of the chamber. Sparks hissed from shattered artifacts, and flickering stasis fields cast the hall in an erratic, ghostly light. The smell of ozone and scorched stone hung thick in the air, heavy with the aftermath of battle. Guilliman's voice broke the silence. Send for reinforcements. We secure the gallery. Catalogue everything. Every artifact, every anomaly. Nothing is to be lost. The lion's eyes swept the chamber, narrowing. His voice was low, cautious. Guilliman, you need to see this. Ahead, in the gloom, a single stasis cage glimmered faintly. Guilliman followed the lion's gaze. Inside, a figure shimmered with an eerie, unnatural light. Guilliman's chest tightened. The figure's armour, the curve of his form, it was unmistakable. Fulgrim, or a perfect replication of him. The lion's hand drifted to the hilt of his sword, his eyes widening in disbelief. Guilliman's jaw clenched. For a moment, neither moved. The chamber seemed to hold its breath as the two Primarchs stared at the form of their brother, alive, or some haunting echo of what he had once been. Shock, disbelief, and a creeping unease settled over them both. Neither spoke, they simply stared. Fulgrim. And the gallery seemed darker than ever.